Apple walks away from China. April 27, 2025. Tariffs and the concentration of the assembly of its iPhone in one country have triggered Apple Incorporated's plan to exit most of its Chinese manufacturing relationships. It plans to move most of these to India, which will take at least a year. This will end partnerships in China that go back well over a decade. Apple Incorporated plans to exit most of its Chinese manufacturing relationships. Currently, the majority of smartphone and computer production happens in China. The company now wants all iPhones sold in the United States to be made in India. How tariffs could impact iPhone costs. Apple is extremely anxious about the impact of its reliance on Chinese manufacturers on its profits. Tariffs of as much as 125% on products made in China would push the price of an iPhone to $3,000, particularly if they are made in the United States, where labor costs are higher than in China. Apple would also have to make massive investments in building American-based factories. Bloomberg reported that, by the end of 2026, Apple wants all iPhones sold in the United States to be made in India. The goal means the company would roughly double its annual iPhone output in India to more than 80 million units. Apple wants to protect its gross margin, which is the envy of the industry. In the most recently reported quarter, this margin was 47%, as the company had revenue of $124 billion and a gross margin of $58 billion. Gross margins in the quarter were at an all-time record. Manufacturing in China is part of several problems. Another is iPhone sales there, the world's largest smartphone market with 1 billion users. That is approximately 4 times the US figure. Local companies like Oppo and Vivo have robbed Apple of its market share. Another hurdle for Apple is the weak launch of its AI product. An upgrade will not be available until 2026. In addition, China presents unique difficulties rolling out AI features, which has meant Apple is falling behind rivals in the market. The company is planning to partner with Alibaba to create the Chinese version of Apple Intelligence. What happens if Apple's China sales collapse? Despite Apple losing market share in China, it still gets significant sales from the country. The table below summarizes Apple's China sales in recent years. Year China sales. 2021 $68.4 billion. 2022 $74.2 billion. 2023 $72.6 billion. 2024 $66.9 billion. As you can see, while China is no longer a growth market, Apple does receive significant sales from the country. As of last year, China was about 2/3 the size of the entire European market, for example. One concern could be further retaliation from the Chinese government against Apple if it moves significant amounts of its supply chain out of the country. For example, government officials and employees of certain state-owned agencies are already banned from using iPhones. Further restrictions could whittle down Apple's sales in the country. By the 24th of July, Wall Street story by Douglas A. McIntyre, April 27, 2025.